Dear beautiful people, today I want to talk to you about how to avoid delusion during the spiritual realization process. Now, what I see when spiritual topics are being discussed on the internet, which is a wonderful thing, because now without borders, without limitations by nationality or culture or the illusion of identity, we are able to interchange ideas like never before. So it aids us in the spiritual realization process because with the experience being shared, the amount of information out there, we get a bigger picture. But there's also a certain danger involved with that. And this is the danger of diluting actual experiences, of, let's say, false knowledge being created through circles on the internet where there is the perpetuation of a certain identity based on very, very minuscule experiences. So what I see often is that people, because they are afraid of not knowing, they desire, of course, to know. Knowledge, direct experience, liberates us from not knowing, and therefore we cease to be afraid of this experience, this moment. But when many hear of spiritual realization, they are intimidated by those that do know. And since they're intimidated by it, they wish to catch up. And this is where the ego hijacks the experience. Maybe you have had a little bit of meditation experience. Maybe you read a lot of spiritual books from great teachers that actually know what they're speaking about. It is still speak. It is conceptual understanding. So many, for example, nowadays get very fascinated by the chakra system. And it is a system and it does exist. But what you read on the internet are conceptual understandings. If you think that you can derive knowledge from that, the direct experience, you cannot. These systems are an indicator, an indirect indicator of what is out there. But until you do not practically, for example, make the experience that you shift prana or chi or however you want to call it through the body and you can feel it, not a delusion, not a mind-made object, but an actual direct experience with those energies, this overemphasis on conceptual understanding traps you. And in the Western world, we focus on understanding through the rational mind. This is a very, very strong limitation because deeper knowing is intuitive, it is not rational. We can create concepts and systems, but after we have made direct experience, and only if this direct experience is something that we can verify through continuous practice. That means that we actually develop some sort of scientific attitude towards meditation. Not to get too easily excited, because some might have a glimpse at something, but since they're very afraid and they want to be in a state of knowing, because the ego, of course, feels intimidated by those that know. So it wants to close that gap. And when someone has a tiny glimpse at something, suddenly the ego builds a huge construct, a huge amount of theory around something that was a very limited experience, and this is delusion. And in the extreme case, when someone practices, for example, Kundalini exercises, then it becomes psychosis. So I want to be very, very clear about that. It does not serve you not to accept that you do not know. Not knowing and accepting that brings you closer to realization than to create the illusion of knowledge. And there is much illusion about knowledge out there. So sometimes you hear people asking very severe questions. Questions of utter importance. So someone might ask, is there heaven or hell? Is there judgment? Now, if you feel too sure about it, you do not know. If you give them answer, of course there's heaven or hell. Of course there is judgment. Well, how do you know? Have you verified this? Or have you projected your belief system out there because in truth you do not know and you're terrified not to know? This does not serve you, and this does not serve the beings that you're involved with. Not any amount of reading can replace Zazen. Sitting in meditation until no mind, until all the delusions drop from your mind, is the foundation you build your house on. And if you haven't reached that state continuously, when you start with more advanced meditation techniques, it will just create more ego, more delusion, and even, again, psychosis, possibly. So, when you feel an urge to talk about spiritual experience, observe yourself mindfully. Where does this urge come from? Does it actually come because you are inspired and you really want to share, because you feel a bit liberated, and through this experience of liberation you want to share to others out of compassion because you want to be of assistance to them? Or is it compulsive? Can't you stop talking about it because your ego wants attention and your ego wants to be acknowledged in its sense of not knowing? This just creates more illusion, more blockages, and increases your inner distance towards a true sense of knowing. If that is the case, there's no need to be ashamed about it. Because when we're honest in the human experience, before we truly know who we are and why we're here, we're afraid. And most of us are afraid and were afraid. And maybe at a certain point, when they look beyond the illusion, they cease to be afraid. There is no weakness in admitting fear. Instead, when you admit fear, and when you admit that you do not know, you have created space for the potential to know. But that space needs to be there first. So empty yourself of all those ideas and theories and structures and systems, because in truth they limit you. Contemplate about that. Be well.